Okay. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful, and the most advanced. In honor of the original unconditional moment that all conditional moments have arisen from and will return to. In the presence of the system admin of this existential system and the world host of this world room. So, welcome everyone. I got an hour before a Discord event starts. And I guess I got some announcements and some things to say, but also dive into this heavy topic. I got to be quick here, I guess. Got an hour. So, dear listeners, first of all, I want to say that for like around 12 years, I've provided the lectures for free. The live streams, the live streams would be free as well, in the sense, but accessing them after lecture 2600 requires membership. And the reason for this, there's multiple reasons, but the main reason is simply that I need to start preparing. I feel I've passed the midpoint of my life. So if these lectures throughout the years, through this last 12 years, has provided you some value, feel free to provide that back. And again, keep in mind, live streams, they will be like when I stream something, it's going to be public, but afterwards it's gonna be members only. So if you don't catch a live stream, you need membership. But if you catch the live streams, then enjoy. Okay. So that's something important I need to communicate. Okay, folks. To continue. Anyways, guys, I made myself clear. I'm gonna go forth with the lecture and honor this lecture. Um, and yeah, guys, I've decided that I leave it in, the species' hands, and God's hands, in the sense that if you would like to follow my journey, I guess help me out too. All right, enough of that. All right, folks. Let's go into the episode, and I'm going to practice trusting myself here in a new vibe. All right, folks, let's get into it. All right, let's cheer up the moment. So, this dude named Mr.Within, who is simultaneously a member of the human species and simultaneously a ridiculously attentive person to the world. Mr.Within is an idea that suggests that meaning of life comes from within. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent and the most merciful. So it begins, the path of man, every human implementing their own strategy on earth to realize it is incomplete, and we seek a greater resolve. First sentence, you were always more. Remember this. You are always more than what you can see with what your brain processes. Your brain, you're not accessing actual reality, you're accessing process reality. We go to the grocery store, and what do we buy? As the oblivious younger generations, we buy processed food. Okay, that is the pattern. Okay, so right now it is fair to say, and it is very healthy, I think, for human beings to consider that the meaning of their individual lives is a sort of processing. Okay, and the question gets deeper, because what is processing what? What is the actuality of reality? Okay, and guys, I'm going to say this in the middle of this lecture because this is the first lecture where I've started like the membership. Just to let you guys know so nobody freaks out. The live streams, like I miswrote it. When I record a live stream, when it's live, it's going to be, in some sense, what do you call it? It's going to, when I record it, it's going to be public, but afterwards it's going to require membership. And, you know, I understand, you know, my heart goes out to this world, but at the same time, you know, I require greater momentum and power. You know, I'm at a point in my life where I am seeking consciously financial power. And so that requires a vision. In other words, think of it this way: do not see me as heartless, but see me as if I am preparing to, in some sense, ignite, maybe, God willing, if I am that soul or not, I don't know, but God willing, ignite the most advanced movement on earth. I realized I'm here once. Okay, so I have decided this, you know, and I have had many routes of, in some sense, just looping in this reality comfortably, but in some sense, the rage of now. Why did Dylan Thomas look at his father on his deathbed and said, do not go gentle into that good night? Rage, rage against the dying of the light. When you listen, when you see the power of poetry, you see that it is in some sense traversing realms. And so what does it mean to rage against the dying of the light as a being? Okay, this is very important. What does it mean when I say you were always more? And why has one human being had the audacity, has had the confidence, you know, a strange confidence and boldness to come and tell a species that is terrified of the physical future that the future is within us? Why? Why has existence brought this moment forth? And I will tell you something fascinating. You might be from the other side hearing this, and you might think just because of the expression of the movement, there is a hidden certainty. But let me tell you, if I have any power, where that power comes from. I'm not talking about outer realm power. If I have any power in any other inner realm classification. Okay? The first answer is I was capable of not being a self and yet being here. That's one of my abilities. Strangely circumstantial, based on how I was raised, and in some sense I was shy and introverted, and in some sense the self was a confusion of a colossal nature, but not of an identity nature. Do you know? But anyways, so forgive me if I sound intense. Forgive me if I come across as an authority. The only authority in this realm is the original moment, the original earth, the original self, the original world. Okay, and so I am speaking in an arena of countless simulated entities, and even beings simulated that are not even in form. Just because there is no form in space doesn't mean there is no life in space. Space is alive in ways that man cannot fathom. But that is for a different lecture. In tonight's lecture, we are charging towards the value of the human being. In other words, every fathomable archetype that is currently active in this human existential system. Okay? So I am in some sense, let me tell you, because I get bored quick, I move fast. I have been slowing myself down to explain. But in reality, there was a hidden truth to the movie Jumper. I don't know if people have seen that film. There's this hidden truth to the nature of the inner realms. In other words, think of it this way. Who are you listening to? You are listening to that human being that was taught and conditioned and sculpted to be a part of this realm. And I so masterfully became part of this realm that I got bored of being this. And then questions began finding me in ways that I had never fathomed that the world could be questioned. Okay? And so what is going on here is a bit more, not a bit, way more of a complex situation than just a bunch of humans on Earth. That is what we tell ourselves to hide the fact that an incredibly vast unknown intelligent activity is happening. We are hiding behind the curtains of the past, not realizing why the light of the future can't be seen in the present. In other words, the moment is becoming closer. This is a new vibe. Do you know, I have normalized it for myself for years, but for others, it's equivalent to being in free fall. Okay? What is this vibe? This vibe is, imagine suddenly some dude gave a lecture and you entered a parallel universe of Earth where 8.1 billion human beings had awakened from the slumber of self-simulated meaning. So what does that mean? That means, in some sense, first you need to activate the army, then command it. Do you understand? And how do you activate the army? How do you train the army? Do you understand? And there's only one way to train, to show the ultimate chaos, and then the soldier figures out if they're ready or not. Okay? So in other words, imagine that there was an opportunity that in one instant you stepped into a different parallel reality of Earth. Wait a minute, everything looks physically the same. What's different? What's different is that when you look at human beings, they are all silently smiling at each other, not with any emotion in the back of their psyche, in some sense limited to a cultural framework. In other words, I want you to imagine everybody right now. I want you to, if you have family members, imagine your siblings. Okay, imagine just your family. The honor you feel for your family. Imagine that. Okay? Now imagine 8.1 billion human beings feel that same honor for this great revolutionary idea that entered the conscious domains of man. Do you know which was the human familia? That means every kid that saw the movie Godfather but wasn't twisted. Do you know what I mean? They weren't drawn by their lower nature, but they were drawn by higher etiquette. Do you know? In some sense, the idea arose. Suddenly, human beings began whispering among themselves, the whispers of a species among itself. And what was that whisper? The advanced civilization. This whole time, there's been an advanced view. This whole time, there's been an advanced possibility. That means being born on Earth is like being like, what has dared distract my species from its potential? That rage is dehumanized. That means I have learned throughout my life to control my rage. I don't let it, what's the term, sip out? I don't let it pour out of my inner realms into the outer realms physically. Because the moment I have to be an animal is the moment I have sinned, and I have deranked from being near the system admin and the original being. That original being is not an idea that can be accepted or rejected. Flaws from both sides. This is where the advanced communicators enter history. That means God is in command. But in some sense, when it comes to the anti-human moderator, and we're users, and God is the system admin beyond the world room. And so when it comes to how dare, that means if it's God's will, no complaint. But how dare, if it is not God's will, an anti-human force before humanity has awakened, attack it. In other words, before greatness remembered itself, they are distracting it. What that means is, do you know what being a futurist means? It means you get bored of the present, you run into the future, you see problems in the future that can be solved from the present, you run back to the present. After some point, it is impossible to process and manage and be considerate of all angles. This life is so strange. It is as if taunting you about your incompleteness, but you realize that is the hidden gate. The roars of 8.1 billion souls in an unknown world. Do you know, if you're a lion, when you roar, you're great. But do you know how, in some sense, there's a genius, there's a level up to that? The level up to that is that when you, in some sense, make all lions roar, a part of my ego, it was as if, think of it this way, the soul animates. I don't know if people know this, but in certain traditions, the word soul is called anima. What does that mean? Okay, it means animation. You are not just defined as a noun, you are the force moving the life form as much as you think you are a life form noticing forces. I do not care. Yeah, and that is not a nice sentence to say ever, but I say it because there is something I see behind it. I do not care. That means I have gone over it in my head numerous times. I have envisioned myself being born from different cultures and with different realities, different behaviors, different modes. I've envisioned it. And I've come to the same conclusion. It doesn't matter where in existence I would have been manifested or as what. Eventually, it would be about conscious acceptance of the present, unknown presence. All beings are suffering because you're being photographs in a film. All of you. You are concept hopping in a fixed context that terrifies you. But that is not the case. In other words, Mr. Within's retaliation against the conditioning of the world. You know, I thought many people have different views than me. But many people think that there were evil agendas that have, in some sense, shaped current civilization in ignorance. I thought that there has been too much damage, you know? And I realized, you know, a vibe I'm familiar with in my life. Okay, great. It is not broken yet. Civilization 1.0 has just deranked responsibility on a species level. That's it. Do you know that if you want to defeat a physical, let's say, opponent, you divide and conquer? But how about when you want to defeat an invisible opponent? You divide and conquer purpose. Purpose is an invisible tactic. I don't know if you're in, like, let me tell you, if you're somebody who's suffering, like, let's say in your 20s, it's because you haven't understood this concept of purpose, for example. You know, the future generations are born in such a world that I know that it's very hard for me to relate to them. They are born in pure emotions. The future generations are deciding emotionally more than analytically. Do you know what that means? That means they're going to do what feels right, not what actually can be seen as right. Do you know? And it's going to be a moment where you're going to see all ideological systems are going to unite because the era of the emergence of species level consciousness has come. You know, I've had this very hilarious quality. Do you know? And it was kind of like, I don't know, I guess it's a joke between me and God. Do you know? In the sense that I sometimes see things far ahead, but the personality I have is not one that is holding the moment. Like, that's not trying to grab the moment. So people in some sense think, okay, I just heard somebody say something. And then they go see it happens, and it's as if I've been like face palming from behind the scenes. This has happened to me since childhood in various occasions. And after some point, you just laugh. You're like, okay, there's something, like maybe what I see as a flaw is actually, you know, maybe this is the proper way it should happen. You know, sometimes in my life, I've been so, like, my mind's wanted to, like, let's say, be around others, you know, somehow kind of like, you know, be acknowledged more than itself. Like, my mind's gotten bored of just being acknowledged by myself alone, you know. There was a time, now I've reached a point where it's as if my mind has been alone. I have been so, it's so funny. They say alone, the word alone means you didn't want to be, and you were forced to, or you was a situation where you had no choice. And then solitude is when you consciously want to be alone. Okay? And so it's like what they don't tell you is that when you're lonely for such a long time and you don't feel, you don't have any psychological power to get out of that condition, what ends up happening is that you get bored of your loneliness and suddenly you begin wondering about who you really are. That means the question who you have seen in the mirror is a question that has endless answers. Not just based on how many times you look in the mirror. There was a moment I looked in the mirror and I'm like, what do I see? And I just stared into my own eyes and I'm like, I see me, man. I'm seeing myself right now. And then I was like, no. The self is just when the soul moves, when the inner realms move or project outwards. Okay, I have like 40 minutes, guys. And then I'm going to honor this Discord event that I'm holding every Saturday. All right, folks, let's go more into my vibe. It's like when I'm not giving these lectures, I'm not bound to the archetype, to the role of the archetype. Or the Mr. Withinian archetypal role. Mr. Within is here as a backup system of civilization to remind the species that the power that retaliates against the corruption of chaos is an order from within. Right now, do you know why, if there is, I've asked the system admin, I've prayed to God that God do not let any interdimensional ignorance interfere with mankind until mankind has truly activated. To walk towards the future means to be alone when everybody's smiling in the present. But that is the heroic act. To no longer fear the unknown as a species. To, in some sense, convert our fear into the greatest state of clarity that, all this time we have been fighting over how we've had different eyes. Where have our eyes landed? Where has the species arrived? Where is the might of worlds now? How many human beings have to be born and die for us to realize, it's about the quality of these unknown forces being responsible for an instance of humanity. To be a soul that is human is to be, in some sense, a ranked soul. That means all human souls have ranks. And if you ignore your command, which is your soul, because theologically, God commands existence, commands creation, creates existence by commanding it into existence. Therefore, the mystery of what souls are is obvious, guys. All souls in this realm, that first answer is it's unknown, and the unseen is truly in the jurisdiction of the all-knowing original system admin. But the soul, based on what has been revealed, is how the system admin commanded you into existence. It is the source code that moves your ego code, but you only access the ego code. In other words, the experience of existence, we woke up in our own story. Like when we think of it this way, experience means, when you experience something, means you woke up in your own story, in your own world. Existence means you woke up in some other story, someone else's story. The atheist so casually says, "Nah, man, there isn't God because I don't like fiction," and then goes and does theoretical physics only to realize the idea of self that rejected God was a fiction too. In the inner realms, what is the great war, the great challenge? The great challenge is, it's so easy. Oh yeah, human beings are killing each other on the surface of the planet. Okay, why are they killing each other? Oh yeah, because they're all different beings and they're in different parts of the world and they identify as different nationalities and different groups. And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot the divided and the conquered. The divided and the not yet conquered. That's the human species. Right now, it would be the prime time for an alien invasion. We're being protected. The species is being protected. I'm not even kidding. Do you know? There's some new age people, they're like, yo, man, I got guardian angels. And I'm like, buddy, like you, it's like, yo, that's nothing. Did you know the species has guardian angels? Did you know in Islamic theology there is a realm called Alam al-Malakut? That means God did not just create an anti-human moderator. God created archangels. The archangels' very significant role. It means it's the balance of the duality in regards to moderators being created beings. So think of it this way. I'm here and I'm kind of a little bit alarmed, right? And people are like, Mr. Within, what's wrong? Why are you nervous? And I'm like, okay, everybody hasn't noticed it yet, but this whole world, there's a higher being, there's a system admin watching. That means nothing that we can fathom. We cannot fathom we cannot fathom it, but we know that we're in higher attention. Okay, we're in the presence of a higher attention. Okay, keep that in mind. Second thing, there's moderators, invisible created beings that act as sectors. There are instances of these in Vedic thought, in the Vedic, ancient Indian Vedic, let's say, I guess psychology. There was a deity named Kali, and Kali, some people were like, yo, I see Kali, and some people were like, no, Kali is the presence. Whenever people gamble, they're jealous or they're greedy, Kali appears. Something like that. I think it was in one of the Puranas or something. Do you understand what I'm saying? They're saying it's the suggestion that, okay, we thought it was as simple as us just existing on Earth. It's an ecosystem, okay? And we may not understand it, but it's not empty. They think it's empty space. It's not empty. It's an ecosystem. For the first time, Mr. Within is saying to the human species, it's not space, it's soil. Outer space is not outer space. It's an ecosystem. Different traditions acknowledge it differently. But for me personally, there's the system admin, the original state of reality, the original unconditional cause. And then we are the emergence, we are the simulated conditional effect. Okay, all of us. Like our parents kind of loved us too much by telling us, yo, we were just, perfect as we were. Do you know what I'm saying? Reality is beyond meaning. In actuality, how fierce of a soul have you do you have to be to wonder about it? The unknown is not something that should be translated as fear, shyness, nervousness. Do you know? The unknown is the birthplace of the most greatest known ideas to man. Right now, I'm trying to tell you, they distracted us by making us think we're a character in a story, but they couldn't hide duality even in that. And all human beings are conscious of duality, not just the duality of a self in a world, but the duality of night and day, the duality of right and wrong. In other words, the future generations, they will realize all the mystery of life is a relationship between the unknown and the known. This is what I think Carl Jung wanted to say but couldn't. It's all about the unknown. And so I'm an unknownist. Okay, do you know what that means? That means when in my honest revision, in my calculation, and when I pushed aside everyone and I was like, what if everyone's wrong? Do you know? What if all those people telling me I'm wrong are wrong too? What if all of us are wrong? What if we're all trapped in a wrong moment? Do you know? And I began to see, okay, I am a living agent. I'm the only soul in my moment that is at my own command. And so in some sense there arose purpose suddenly. That my Lord, O Lord of worlds, I understand the test of man in manifestation. To remember the original before the simulated shapes him, takes him. But now we have reached a time where enough human beings can see far into the future of the species and be like, okay, being a human is a phase. Therefore, defense systems need to be built around the biological human idea. Right now, okay, let me tell you this. There's different perspectives on this. Okay, there's different ways. Like, think of it this way: if you're a general of a battlefield, if you had an ability to float, every angle would give you a new information of the battlefield, a different view of the battlefield. Every angle and elevation. So there's infinite views. The task of the general is to become responsible for figuring out the greatest finite vision in the infinite arena of possibilities. You know, we are at the era of the advanced human. And you're gonna be like, what does that mean? Do you know, or I'm too busy to wonder about how advanced I can be. And I'll be like, all right. Do you know, I have been lazy too, but there's a moment where you realize that you are not, life is like a bell curve, first of all. And that means every day that you're tired is the day that you have the most energy, because the next day you're getting older. You understand? And so it's all about In other words, I am an unknownist because I've realized it's an unknown place, really, before I even call it a place. And I'm also an unknown being. And my whole life, I've been this presence of an unknown awareness and an ability to be an unknown force of it. Do you know, moving this life form? So as this unknown life force in an unknown world, I've been moving an unknown life form, but when I move it, I am consciously known as it. So in other words, we cannot ignore the unknown. The unknown, I believe that it's more unknown than known. So you can't, if somebody tells me, here's the thing, I don't have kids, but if my son one day came up to me or my daughter came up to me and said, okay, what is a more advanced state of intelligence than the human? What human beings can access? I would tell them it's about realizing that if you want to go beyond the walls of the kingdoms of knowledge, you are entering the unknown, which means it's the unknown life. And most human beings are just trained and conditioned to be responsible for their known life. Me talking about an inner realms, that's just the beginning. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Do you know my life as a human being on Earth is like every day I'm like, yeah, man, civilization 1.0. And the moment I come to give these talks, it's as if my future self is standing in civilization 2.0. It is about the advancement of intelligence in this realm. And I'm telling you, a more advanced state is dehumanized. So think of it this way. You know how there's good and evil? Like, they're like, yo, bro, how long are chaos and order gonna fight? And the answer is simply this. The awareness to chaos and order is beyond chaos and order. But another version of that would be, if they're like Mr.Within, what is the great chaos and the great order you see that are battling it out? I would say it is pretty much, think of it this way. We are trying to stay as human, as biologically, naturally human as long as we can. And everything else in nature is dehumanized. And I'm standing here and I'm just like, yo, what should I say to this species? And I'm like, all right, guys, just understand. Like, what else can be said? Okay? That we are humanizing everything so it fits into our value system, and then we personalize it as our meaning. And that meaning is arising from within. Objects have no meaning in the same way an artwork has multiple ways of having meaning based on different people looking at it. You know, a part of me cannot ignore how right now, just like when I look back at my past and I'm like, yo, man, it was so easier for me to do certain things back then. Why didn't I do them? I realize right now is the past of the future version of me, if it was to say that. I'm trying to think of it this way. and it's like they took an ancient, outdated biological technology and put it in a man-forged, unnatural system. And right now, we're purely biological, but we're living in unnatural places, and we are behaving unnaturally, and we're communicating unnaturally. I don't see squirrels, you know, writing Elder Scrolls, on like this endless parchment with an ink pen on a tree. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see squirrels doing that. I don't see other species caring for their past in the way the human being does. I don't see other species caring for the present in the way the human being does. And I don't see any other species caring for the future in the way it does. That means we know what's coming. Do you know that means there was an alien invasion deep down in our hearts? Like a lot of human beings would run away to other planets, but some human beings would stand their ground and they're like, yo, we can't ignore all the other species that don't have the consciousness to notice the chaos that comes. It's a matter of first unite mankind, the armies of mankind united, and then unite earthkind. We united all the species. No longer food was based on animal devouration. Do you know what I mean? Think of it this way. The answer, if you were a physical being, you'd ask what is this? The answer is going to be unknown. If you are a subjective being, you're like, what is this? You're going to think that your subject is it, but deep down you're going to know that's just what you're choosing to see. To me, if they're like, I see it this way. I see it that we're all in some next level training ground. And there are hidden great purposes of mankind that will be activated on a collective level. Do you know what that means? We've reached that moment in human history, folks. This happens anytime there's wars on the surface of the planet, where we go into that surreal time frame where the species has an ability to step into a different parallel reality because they can see already the outcome of the chaos in the abstract way. In other words, my body is listening to the world, or excuse me, let me say it this way. Right now, in this moment, it can be portrayed as like spheres, concentric spheres. What does it mean? It means in the same moment that I am aware that I am existing objectively is the same moment I realize my awareness to my body is not a physical thing. And I also realize my awareness to subjects in my inner realms and how you can close your eyes and remember, like the food you ate yesterday, there's no light beams entering your eyes, but you can see it. Excuse me. Or even dream states where your body is asleep, but you get to experience a completely alternative reality. I'm telling you, these are levels. Level 1, you're being responsible for an objective existence. Level 2, you're being responsible for a subjective existence. Level 3, you're being responsible for that awareness that gives meaning to that assigns the subject to the object. Because free will is kind of like a paradox. It's like, how can you be individual and how can you be free at the same time? This is the weird thing. An individual is not free. An individual is separate from everything. It's like all this thing about liberty, freedom. What is freedom? And there's Eastern Enlightenment and Western Enlightenment. I understand this, but I'm saying, like, what does freedom mean for a species on Earth? It means, imagine a child from the most poverty-stricken country, let's say messed up situation in life, climbs their way to modern civilization. And they're like, what are modern people doing? They're just relaxing. It is now time to ignite great purpose for the human species. Now, when I say, is the future within us, I gotta just kind of make this, just talk about this specifically. If meaning comes from within us to what is outside, we spray our meaning on the outer realms, like we graffiti meaning on objects subjectively. What is greatness in an unknown world? We have reached that incredible time where the species is outgrowing this notion that what it means to be human is just the specific idea. To attempt to fathom as an individual human being the ultimate great destination or the great human destiny as a conscious living agent in this simulated world, as I see the fear on the eyes of unknown souls that wondered why they were being here. I see now we require the emergence of greater stories than we've ever heard before. The new redemption of the human species. That means all wars were civil wars. Everything returns to its original value. That means it's very obvious the chess move the human species has to make. I ask myself pretty much in every moment, how is it that it's all here? Out of everything that I could have experienced, why this, why this, why this? And like a hammer, as if like a two-handed hammer, and I've been slamming this hammer against this unknown surface to wonder about where is it really. And I discovered that I was raised and conditioned in the man forged. I was born in civilization 1.0. I will try to take, protect, all the human activity in civilization 1.0, but I understand that civilization 2.0's arrival is key. This whole time, we have all been present as the advanced humanity. Do you know what it is? I gave a lecture on loyalty, and there was a research component. I was really looking at it from different angles. And I realized there is no such thing as being loyal to a person. It's being loyal to a value, which then becomes a purpose. In other words, there was a scene in Lord of the Rings where Theoden King gives a speech to like his army, and that speech was so next level, and his army, like, he legit reminds his army, like, we're freaking fighting like these dehumanized entities, do you know what I mean, for mankind, and he marches in. You see, it's all a distraction. Think of it this way. Eleanor Roosevelt said, I think, small minds talk about people, average minds talk about events, great minds talk about ideas. Now, why is this important? Okay? Because the whole point of it is that people, if you think through people, like think in terms of people, right, you are distracting yourself from the greater events of the realm. And then when you think in events, you're distracting yourself from the greater ideas in the realm. And when you in some sense think about the greater ideas, you're distracting yourself from the true unknown presence of the realm. That means it's so funny. It's not that I was, and like I was a known being until I realized the unknown. Then everything reset in such a hilarious way, where they're like, Mr. Within, how many lives have you lived? And I will tell you, it's very funny. I have lived one life. In this lifetime, I've lived one life. But the view from that one lifetime was countless lives. And so, it's all for the advancement of civilization, I'm not even kidding. I'm bored of I've seen my own destiny. Oh yeah. It's all, what I'm trying to say is this. Mr. Within is this dude in history saying not to follow him. Don't follow me like some blind robot. Do you know? What I'm telling you is, imagine your most advanced self in the most advanced world, among the most advanced self of others, was giving you a command. And not was giving you a command, but what was it looking at? That means this has been this playful thing, where I've always been like, yo, man, what would a smarter version of me do right now? And then I think about, okay, what would a smarter version of that do right now? And then eventually I realize ultimately my heart is seeking the most advanced state of reality, because it is feels a little eerie. It's like people are afraid of ghosts, but when the ghost has a body, oh my God, that's just a neighbor. You know what I mean? There's no problem with that. I'm just saying that when you truly look at the nature of reality, you see the difference between epistemology and ontology. Epistemology means the ways humans got to know it. It was what brains did. Ontology meant what it was actually. They're like, Mr. Within, are you trying to be unknown? Are you trying to be great in an unknown world? And I'm trying to say that unconditional faith in the unknown is equivalent to a moment that, regardless of its imperfections, is complete because it is in the presence of the original being. You see, like, people are trying to live in good or bad lives. I'm here trying to figure out where the original being is. And I've realized it. How does your heart beat beyond your mind? And how does the heart of the species beat beyond the mind of the species? We have to care for the inner realms of 8.1 billion unique human beings, and we have to care for the outer realm of all humanity. The tasks at hand are clear. I hope this lecture was what it needed to be. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful, and the most advanced, in honor of the original moment. And so all simulations in the realm don't fear, for greatness was in the room before failure what could be. That is the power of the heart accessing the pure lands. Live on this earth that makes your most advanced self in the most advanced world proud. Be a greatness that the world is waiting for. Because when all those people who right now feel anguish, despair, in, let's say, the lower natures of man looping there, it doesn't matter. You need to look at the sky. Look at how vast it is. And journey beyond the walls of the kingdoms that defined you too soon. Rise, mankind, rise in the inner realms. That means, like, what idea of you, it's as if, like, if I ask you, are you your past self now? You're like, no. And then if I ask you who you are now and you give me an answer, then the moment you gave that answer, from the exact moment after that, you're not that. Subjectivity is a different relationship to being a being than objectively being a being. But ultimately, we start as an unknown instantaneous presence of a viewer, aware. It's honestly like very video game vibe. Like, all existence is an MMO, multiplayer online game. Okay? To be free means, how can you be free in an unfree world? You're like, oh my God, I can take care of myself, but the species is freaking out. Unconditional faith means, even though we are 8.1 billion unknown selves in an unknown world, we're still gonna play the game. That's how cool we are as souls, as a class of, like, souls, being responsible for the members of a human species. We are, like, this might sound bizarre, but consciousness is, like, strangely like the guardian angel force of spherical awareness that is protecting. Like, you are your own guardian angel, your first guardian angel. But before that, it is the original. The system admin is the greatest view. The religions were actually transmissions beyond the world room. Anyways, thank you for listening. And guys, the Discord event is going to start from now. Just, I don't know, go look at the about section of the YouTube channel. And yeah, I'll see you on Discord. Thanks.